This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
So again, Sefer Daniel, we want to speak out this morning. Was Daniel an actual Navi? You have over here in number 1, Daniel Perek Yod Pasuk Zayin. The pasuk says the following. It says, "V'ra'isi ani Daniel levadi es hamara." I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. V'ha'anoshim asher hayu imi lo yirau es hamara. And the people that were with me did not see the mara. Aval charada gedola nafla aleihem. A great fear fell upon them. Vayivruchu b'hechavei, and they ran away in hiding. So this pasuk says something very interesting. Daniel saw the vision, and the people with him didn't see the vision. Now, if I say I saw something and the people with me didn't see it, that means they had the ability to see it, and for whatever reason they didn't. But not that they couldn't, or they didn't have the capacity to see it. So
why does it mean that? Why does it mean that?
Because otherwise it would be unnecessary for Daniel to say the people with him didn't see it. If they didn't have the capacity to see it, it would be obvious they didn't see it. In other words, if Daniel saw a prophetic vision, did Daniel have to say, I saw the vision, but Mo, Larry, and Curly, they didn't see it? Of course they didn't see it. They're Mo, Larry, and Curly. They're not Naviim. So for Daniel to say, I saw it, and the other guys with me didn't see it, that would imply we would otherwise assume they did see it, and Daniel has to tell us, by the way, they didn't see it. That's how the Gemara understands it.
Not only that, it should say, Lo yuchal liris amara. Not lo yirau. Lo yirau means they could have seen, but they didn't see it.
Okay. So
How do we know the Mara means Nebuah?
Okay, let's see how the Gemara interprets it. The Gemara Masechta Megillah on Daf Gimel interprets this pasuk. They should be out there. Yeah? The what? But we know that Yechezkel did have Nevuah in Chutz Aretz, and I believe a Navi who had started off his career in Eretz Yisrael was able to see Nevuah even in Chutz Aretz. So it could be Daniel was Mi B'nai Yehuda. Maybe he began his career as a Navi in Eretz Yisrael. So look at the Gemara Megillah. The Gemara says like this.
Rabbi, if I'm next to you, next to a person, and that person says that he saw something, I can say, you're dreaming that you're seeing it.
Yeah, but if Daniel says he saw it, we'll take his word for it.
Okay.
Right?
Is that how you're...
So look, the Gemara says like this. The Gemara Megillah Daf Gimel says, "V'ra'isi ani Daniel levadi es hamara." I, Daniel, alone saw the vision. V'ha'anoshim asher hayu imi lo yirau es hamara. The people that were with me didn't see the vision. Aval charada gedola nafla aleihem. A great fear fell upon them. Vayivruchu b'hechavei. So the Gemara asks,
Right.
what?
What did they fear?
So the Gemara asks if they didn't see, so what were they afraid of? We'll see. Okay, hold on to your horses. Maninu anashim. Who are these people with Daniel? Amar Reb Yirmiyah v'Yitema Reb Chia bar Abba. Zeh Chagai, Zechariah, uMalachi. These refer to, who are these men that were with Daniel? Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi. Says the Gemara. Now the Gemara comments, Inhu adifai minei. They were greater than him. V'ihu adif minayu, and he was greater than them. In other words, in one respect they were greater than him, and in another respect he was greater than them. Inhu adif minei, they were greater than him. The inhu navi v'ihu lav navi, they were greater than him because they were Nevi'im, and Daniel was not a Navi. Okay, so you have a Gemara explicitly saying that Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi, they were Nevi'im, Daniel wasn't. But ihu adif minayu, he was greater than them. The ihu chaza, because he saw the vision, ve'inhu lo chazu, and they didn't see. Now, Rabbi said, what do you see from here? That even if a person is not a Navi, they could still see a vision. And they could still have...
Navi, they don't see the vision.
Right, and even someone who is a Navi, right. Now, what's a vision? A vision somehow is some kind of lower level of supernatural experience. Okay? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a Navi. You could have supernatural connection to God and see things that ordinary human beings cannot see. It doesn't make you a Navi. But the Gemara is clearly saying, was Daniel a Navi? No. Let's see Rashi. Rashi seems to try to wiggle out of this Gemara. Rashi, by the way, I magnified this Rashi 200 times. Okay? I put it on, first I magnified 155. It wasn't big enough. I made it 200 times. Look at number 3. So Rashi learns this Gemara. Shenisnavu liyisrael b'shlichusai shel makom. Chagai Zechariah Malachi. They prophesied for the Jewish people because God sent them. Behu lo nishtaleach liyisrael b'shum nevuah. Daniel was never sent to tell Klal Yisrael any nevuah. Now it seems like from Rashi that Rashi's saying Daniel really was a Navi. He saw nevuah. He didn't just see a vision. He saw nevuah. What the Gemara means, that Daniel was not a Navi, all that means was he never was sent on a specific mission to relay prophecy to the Jewish people. But in terms of his clarity of perception, he saw things just as clear as, say, Yeshaya, Yirmiyah, Yechezkel.
I think we had in the Shiur previously that the definition of Navi is that a Kadosh Baruch Hu sent to the Bnei Yisrael through the Navi messages. And that if the Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't use the Navi to send messages to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, you're not a Navi.
Okay.
Just because you, like that's why it says Mara Navi, not...
But let's talk about the clarity of his vision. We would understand the Gemara simply put, that when the Gemara says they were Nevi'im and he wasn't, we may take that to mean that their level of supernatural connection through what they saw was on a higher level than Daniel. And Rashi's saying no. Rashi's saying they did not necessarily see things clearer than Daniel. They were just sent on a mission. For example, Rabbi say, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, were they ever sent on a mission to tell Kaisel Nevuah? No. Never. There's no Jewish people. And even if there was, like the Rabbi, even if there was, we don't find Hashem said, Abraham, go tell your household this and this and this. We don't find such a thing. So, what Rashi seems to be saying is, Daniel was like Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It's just that when the Gemara means he wasn't a Navi, he wasn't a Navi in the sense he wasn't sent on a mission. Now, take a look at the Shagas Aryeh. You know, you would think, when do you learn Shagas Aryeh? You learn in a Pilpul Shir. You know, tell someone you learned Shagas Aryeh in a Navi Shir. Right? That's a good one. But the Shagas Aryeh wrote a commentary on Masechta Megillah called the Turei Yaven. And the Shagas Aryeh makes this diuk in Rashi. Look at number 4. Right? The Rashi learns, number 4, Perish Rashi, the Inu Navi, they were prophets, Shenesnavu b'shlichusa shemakim. They prophesied because God sent them. And he was not sent to Klal Yisrael any nevuah. Mi perushay mashma, says this Shagas Aryeh from Rashi. It implies Shahaya Navi. Really, he wasn't a. But he didn't prophesy to others. Says the Shagas Aryeh, I would disagree with this explanation of the Gemara. I feel that the simple meaning of the Gemara is Daniel was not a Navi. That's not what the Gemara means when it says they were Nevi'im and he wasn't. Not that he happened not to have been sent to. It's mashma elaloi haya Navi klal. He wasn't a Navi. Rabbi, so what's the difference between being a Navi and being a Baruch HaKodesh? Being a Navi is when God himself relays to you the supernatural information. A Ruach HaKodesh does not come directly from God. It comes through the medium of Malachim. So that's what Shagas Aryeh says. That's what I feel the Gemara means. The simple meaning of the Gemara is Lo haya Navi klal v'lo nisyached elav hadibor. God's speaking was not in an intimate fashion. Mipi hagvura lo ilamu. It never happened. V'chol divrei ha'asilas v'sefer Daniel, and all of the future revelations that Daniel had haya yidei malach. Either it was through an angel or chaloim to the mefarish b'kra. Like the pasuk says, didn't we have that in Sefer Daniel? How did Daniel have his vision? Through an ish. Right? Yeah. Who's the ish? Gabriel. So it says the Shagas Aryeh, Daniel was no Navi. Says the Shagas Aryeh, let me tell you something. I feel that not only is it my interpretation of the Gemara that Daniel was a Navi, Rashi himself later on in Masechta Megillah retracted. He was Chayzer, and Rashi himself says Daniel was not a Navi. Where does Rashi say this? Look what the Shagas Aryeh says. Let's go down to the next Gemara for a moment. The Gemara later on in Masechta Megillah says, look at number 5, Tanu Rabbanan, Arbaim Ushmaina Naviim, 48 prophets. V'sheva Navios, and 7 prophetesses. Nisnavu lahem liYisrael, prophesied for the Jewish people. V'lai pichsu, they didn't take away. V'lai haisiru, and they didn't add al mashakasu b'Torah, except for what? Chutz mikra Megillah. Okay, so Rabbi, I ask you, how many Nevi'im did we have? 48. Right? So the Gemara says, the Gemara over there asks, that's it? But we know there were Nevi'im in Klal Yisrael, Kiflayim, Miyotzei Mitzrayim, more than 1.2 million. So the Gemara says, Nevuah, Shehutzuchu L'Doros were the ones that were recorded. Now Rashi gives us a list. Who are the 48 Nevi'im? Right? I'm not going to read the whole thing. Look at number 6. Rashi in the Gemara Megillah, Daf Yudaled, Rashi gives us a list. Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yehoshua. Yeah, and Rashi brings down David, Shlomo, Hoshea, Amos, Micha, Amos. Yeah, and so forth. Yeshaya, Yoel, Nachum, Chavakot, Zephaniah, Yirmiyah, Yechezkel, Daniel. So Daniel made the list. Of the 48 Nevi'im, Daniel made the list. That's what Rashi brings down from Seder Olam. And then Rashi asks, how could Daniel be a Navi? The Gemara says earlier on Daf Gimel that Daniel was not a Navi. Says Rashi, take Daniel off the list. Rashi even asks, Bial Daniel, about Daniel. We say earlier, Inu Navi v'hulav Navi, that they were Navim and he wasn't. Ela apik Daniel, take Daniel off the list. V'ayu Shame. So Rashi,
it's going to be short one.
And he says, and put in Shame. Put in Shame. Take Daniel off the list and put Shame. So Rashi apparently retracts, and Rashi feels Daniel was not a Navi at all.
And say earlier that Abraham and Yitzchak were not Nevi'im? Right. So how they get on this list?
The answer is, being a Navi doesn't necessarily mean relaying information to Klal Yisrael. According to this Rashi, being a Navi means you are able to see a clear vision from Hashem. And that Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had. And says Rashi, Daniel didn't have. What?
It says right here, Borisi ani Daniel Avadi and Samara.
Right, but would you say that you're a Navi because you said, I saw the Super Bowl?
Well, the others must have seen it too because they ran away.
What?
And they were afraid. What were they afraid of? If they didn't
by the way, later on, the Gemara asks, so if the other people didn't see, what were they afraid of? The Gemara says, Ihu lechazi, mazle chazi. Their angel, their mazel perceived it. So
isn't Rashi contradicting himself?
Where?
First he says he is, and over
Rashi brings down from the Seder Olam.
When do you retract? So why didn't he erase his commentary from the original?
Couldn't erase, it was published.
Yeah,
that's what. Look what the Shagas Arya writes. The Rashi be'atzmai nira shechazar bay. Rashi himself seems to have retracted. The lekaman be'perosh. Rashi says explicitly, the Rabbi Mishman Avim Nisablu Yisrael v'chashav Rashi Daniel echa mehem u'mesayim v'al Daniel amru le'el v'yulav Navi el apik Daniel v'ayishmai. I don't understand, says the Shagas Arya. What was Rashi's kasha? Just because the Gemara earlier says that Daniel wasn't a Navi, maybe that just means he wasn't sent to Klal Yisrael. Why does Rashi have to take Daniel off the list? You don't have to take Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov off the list, even though they weren't sent to Klal Yisrael. Why does he have to take Daniel off the list? Apparently Rashi feels that Daniel was not a Navi at all. Right? V'i Daniel haya Navi, ela shaloi nishtaleach, amay apik Daniel. Why we have to take off Daniel? Ha-chashiv, ha-sam. We count over there the Memches Nevi'im among the 48 prophets. Harbe shaloi nishtachu. Many Nevi'im that were not sent. Like the Avos. We don't find the Avos were sent.
Rabbi, can we go back to the Gemara Megillah?
Yeah.
Look at the Lashon of the Gemara. So what does it say? The Ehu Adipinei, Inu Adipinei, the Einu Navi'eh, the Ehu Lav Navi, right?
Right.
Adipinei, the Ehu Chazeh, the Einu Lo Chazeh. How do we know the Gemara is not just speaking about Navi in this particular case?
No, but first,
because it's referring right to here. In this instance, he saw something and they didn't see it. That doesn't mean...
Fine, but in terms of the statement of Nevuah, they're saying they are Nevi'im and he is not a Navi. Right?
The Gemara doesn't even mention who these people are. Rashi has to interpret
No.
they are.
The Gemara says it's Chagai, Zechariah, and
the
Melachim,
Gemara.
right?
But it doesn't
The
say.
Navi doesn't say, yeah. But the Gemara comments that they were Nevi'im and Daniel was not a
Maybe
Navi.
because it said the Lo Chazi, it's talking about this instance.
Yeah, that part of it is definitely talking about that instance. He saw it, they didn't see it.
There weren't any other cases where Daniel did see
Nevuah, that's what
Nevuah.
the Gemara seems to be saying no. Gemara seems to be saying no.
Case?
Yeah. Now listen to this one last thing. So it seems like, at least the way the Shagasari learns, that ultimately Rashi feels Daniel was not a Navi. Even though the Rashi in the beginning of Masechta Megillah is trying to wiggle out of it and say, well, he wasn't sent to Klal. So now I want to point out that if you look in Shemais, someone passing a Chumash, a Mekrais Gedol is Shemais. If on the pasuk, Va'aroin achicha yiyah niviecha, right? Hashem tells Moshe, Aaron, your brother, will be your Navi. What does that mean? And Moshe is not a Navi? So Rashi says the word Navi comes from a lashon of niv sefasayim. That Rashi says the definition of a Navi is Misha Machriz, the Nevuah of Hashem la'achirim. So Rashi, in the beginning of Megillah, is really going l'shitase, that Rashi learns that the definition of Nevuah is someone who's sent to tell, right here, the pasuk says like this.
I had that in a previous show where we had a whole definition of discussion.
Right? Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, rei nesaticha lekim lefarai, v'aron achicha yiyah neviecha. Says Rashi, yiyah neviecha. What does the Targum say? V'aron achicha yiyah mesur gemanach. The definition, definition of Nevuah is what? A metorgaman. Rashi says, Ketagumay metorgamanach. V'chein kol lashon Nevuah adam hamachriz umashmiya la'am divrei teichachos. V'hu migezeras niv sefasayim. The word Navi comes from the lashon of to speak, utterance, or yanav chachma. However, the Ibn Ezra translates Navi differently. The Ibn Ezra translates Navi The Ibn Ezra says, "Ha'imrim ki Navi migezeras niv sefasayim einenu nachaim." Ibn Ezra says Navi has nothing to do with niv sefasayim. He says, "V'shayresh Navi shalosh osius." Rak perushahu Navi she'agala lo yisaydai. The definition of Navi is someone who God reveals a secret to. So it seems like these two Rashis could be, which definitely disagree. Rashi on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph seems to contradict Rashi on Daf Yadalet. Rashi on Daf Gimel seems to translate Navi as someone who Nivs Vasayim speaks Nevuah to others. Rashi on Yadalet seems to understand that Navi is Misha Megala Saidai. Okay, so there's a few ideas about whether Daniel was a Navi. One last thing. Look at number 7. Okay, this you should remember. This we learned already in Sefer Daniel. In the beginning of the Sefer, it says that Nebuchadnezzar had 4 boys. Vayehi bohem ibnei Yehuda, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Okay, and you have a machlokes in the Gemara in Sanhedrin on Daf Tzadik Gimel Beis between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani. Look at this machlokes. Vayiyu bohem ibnei Yehuda, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Kulan ibnei Yehuda. They were all descendants of Yehuda. Who? Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani says, no, only Daniel was a descendant from Yehuda. Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah were from other Shvatim. Okay, you got that machlokes?
Where does he get that from?
Oh, very good.
Because it says Mibnei Yehuda Daniel and Hanan
No.
Mishal
There's
could
an
be.
asnachta by Mibnei Yehuda.
Doesn't matter. He
Right.
doesn't use this.
First of all, I would say,
Daniel and Hananiah.
I would say-
Okay, Cotton, they go together.
yeah, if it, I would agree with that. I would say if it was going only on Daniel, it should say that Hibahem ibnei Yehuda Daniel,
Yeah.
Kama, or Esnach, and the Hanan Mishav Azariah are other people who were there. Why does Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, and also Mibnei Yehuda implies more than one person, no?
Right.
So why does Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani feel, no, only Daniel was Mibnei Yehuda and not Hanan Mishav Azariah? Listen to what the Maral says. Because since the Gemara says that that Daniel wasn't a Navi, and Hanani, Mishael, Azariah were Naviim, so why is Daniel listed first? Shouldn't Daniel be listed last? Elamai, because he's from Bnei Yehuda. So we put him first. We're saying these were from the Bnei Yehuda Daniel. By the way, Hanani, Mishael, Azariah were not. So the Maral Gufa.
Stretch from the Mashmos.
By the way, even though you could Claire, what do you think? The Gemara doesn't say Hanani, Mishael, Azariah were Nevi'im. The Gemara says Chagai, Zechariah, Malachi were Nevi'im. And I think the Gemara elsewhere says Hanani, Mishael, Azariah were Nevi'im. They knew they were supposed to jump into the fire. Anyway, like I said, this is just a little introduction to some of the concepts in Daniel in general. Let's go back to the Psukim over here, okay?
Where is the Nebuah from them?
What?
Where is the Nebuah they said Nebuah?
Hanani, Mishael, Azariah?
Yes.
I don't remember clearly. It might be the pasuk Amarti Ela Betamar
Achaza
Besansinov. That from there they derive that they were supposed to be Mekadeshim Shemayim. But I don't remember precisely.
Yeah, but there's nothing clear. All the reading what they said something is written down.
Michanani Mishav Azariah? I'm not sure what he's referring to. Okay, now remember, let's just get back into it. Let's say it outside. That Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and he didn't remember not the dream and not the interpretation. So what does he do? What do you have?
Nebuchadnezzar said to the, he said the Cholim to the Nia.
The what?
He said the Cholim to the Nia. It's written here.
Oh yeah, well we didn't get to that yet.
We're not up to there.
Reb Nechemia, you know too much. That's a
He didn't hear.
no cheating. You know going.
Not cheating, no. But
Back to kindergarten.
he couldn't tell the Chartimim with the years. He couldn't tell them.
None of the astrologers and the stargazers.
Come to the Jew. No, to the Jew, you can't tell him a lie. The Jew.
So it's interesting. So right, Nebuchadnezzar, it goes to his Ashafim and his Chartumim and the Kasdiim. None of them know the answer to the dream. And Daniel pulled a trick. Remember the trick? He made it that he doesn't know. He didn't know what was going on. And he says to Aryech, the chief executioner, why is the king so upset? And Aryech says, well, the king has this dream, no one could tell him. Daniel says, give me a couple days. Daniel goes and he davens, and immediately Hashem reveals to him the dream. Now I just want to take you back for a moment to the beginning of Perek Beis, and the pasuk says that this whole episode took place in the second year of the Malchus of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? That's how Perek Beis begins. And if you remember, Chazal don't explain it that way. Chazal explain that when the Navi says, that, or when the Sefer Daniel says that it's occurring in the second year, it doesn't mean the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, but rather the second year after the Churban Beis HaMikdash, which was the 21st year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. Why do we learn like that? So we explained, because if it's actually the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, what's Daniel doing there? We know Daniel was not in any position of power until after his 3 years of training. Right? We know Daniel trained for 3 years. And here, if it happened in the second year, what are they schlepping out Daniel for? Elamai, what do you have to say? It wasn't the second year. It was the second year after the Churban. So the question then is, if it's in the 21st year of Nebuchadnezzar, then he calls all his Chachamim and all of the Ashafim and all the Chartumim, why doesn't he call Daniel? Why didn't he call Daniel? After all, we had in Perek Aleph that at the end of the 3-year training, he found no one to be as wise as Daniel. So he calls all his Chachamim, and then when they say, we can't help you, he wants to kill everyone, why didn't he call Daniel? Yeah? So the Alshach says two explanations. He says, first of all, Daniel was the smartest, but we don't find he had experience in interpreting dreams. It's so hard to understand if he's Taka, the smartest of everybody, why wouldn't he at least summon him? And then the Alshach says further, we only find Daniel was smart b'milei demada. The pasuk says in Perek Aleph pasuk Chaf that in Chachma he was the smartest. But this wasn't a matter of Chachma. Nebuchadnezzar forgot his dream. I mean, you could be brilliant, you can't remind someone of a dream unless you have some kind of supernatural power. Maybe I was thinking, just a conjecture, that the reason he didn't call Daniel is because, like this, he wasn't inherently angry at his chachamim that they couldn't help him out. You know why he was angry at them? He was angry at them because they came to him and they were like, no, what's the problem? What's bothering you? Nebuchadnezzar says, you know how to interpret dreams? And they say, yeah. You just tell us the dream and we'll interpret it. And Nebuchadnezzar says, yeah, but I don't remember the dream. But he said, just tell us the dream and we'll interpret it. And Nebuchadnezzar said, bug off, what's your problem? I told you, I don't know what my dream is. In other words, Nebuchadnezzar was upset at them because they were instigating the matter. They were coming to him. I mean, Daniel was smart. Daniel understood that this is business. He has no connection. How's he supposed to remind someone of something they can't remember? So Daniel stayed out of it. Nebuchadnezzar.
Hard to imagine that Nebuchadnezzar's necromancers, his Makavshim, they know this guy's character. They know what kind of a tyrant he is, and they're going to start chepping with him. And they know that if they check with him, what's going to happen? They're not stupid.
But that's what they did.
Also not Katlikanias.
That's what they did. Oh yeah, just a little bit more. Let's say like this. Let's say a person, Rabbi, so let's say a person has some kind of, he needs special electrical work in his house. He has some kind of unnatural disaster, and he has to completely rewire his whole house. And his brother, let's say, is an electrician. Now the brother knows exactly what that his brother's having problems with his electricity, and he's not offering to help. So what does the brother think? It's above his pay. It's something he can't deal with, right? So Nebuchadnezzar is not stupid. He knows the matter is public. He's having this problem. He knows Daniel's the only guy who could help him out, and if Daniel's not offering, it means Daniel feels it's above his pay scale.
He's the king. He's going to tell him what to do. You're not dealing with a brother who's an electrician. You're dealing with the king who gets what he wants, when he wants it.
You know, it could be Nebuchadnezzar understood that if this is something Daniel could take care of, he would have done so.
Killed lots of people. He's worried about calling over Daniel because Daniel maybe he's not qualified?
No, in other words, Nebuchadnezzar
the reality of it.
Okay, I don't know.
Whatever.
So in any event, so now Daniel steps forward. We're in Perek Beis. Pasuk Chaf Aleph. Okay, this is in the middle of Daniel's prayer to God, and he says the following. Can we go back to Pasuk Yates for a minute?
Yeah.
Daniel keeps on referring to Hashem as what? What does he call Hashem? He says, look in Pasuk Yerches, Pasuk Yates, he says, V'rachamin lemivei min kadam ela shemaya. Or Pasuk Yates, Edayin l'Daniel b'chesed dilel yoraza gali, Edayin Daniel, then Daniel blessed Lelaka Shemaya, the God of heaven. It's very interesting. The God of heaven? When was the last time God was called the God of heaven? Anybody remember? Chumash, you have a Chumash Rashi? Not since Sefer Bereshis has God been called Elokah Shemaya. In Bereshis Chavdalet Zayin, Abraham tells Eliezer, Hashem Elokei Hashamayim Asher Lekachani Mibeis. Listen. Right, but look, in Parshas Chayesara, listen, Rashi in Chayesara says Hashem Elokei Hashamayim. Rashi asks, V'lo yamar v'Elokei Haaretz? Why doesn't it say Elokei Haaretz? But above, Abraham made Eliezer swear by God, Elokei Hashamayim Elokei Haaretz. So Rashi says that when Abraham came down into the world, he brought God down, that he should not only be the God of the heavens, he should be the God of the Aretz also. But when Hashem selected Abraham, at that point of time, no one knew who God was. So what was God referred to? Elokei Hashamayim. So before Abraham, God was Elokei Hashamayim. Abraham made it that Hashem was Elokei Hashamayim, Elokei Haaretz. Okay?
Didn't Noah know it was Elokei Haaretz?
He knew it, but he didn't bring it down to the world, that he wasn't recognized by the world as Elokei Haaretz. Now what would you say? After Abraham, Hashem continued to be Elokei Hashamayim, Elokei Haaretz. Until when?
So the Beis was Hara, then the Shekhinah left.
Okay, I may have said that also. There's a commentary on Sefer Daniel from Rav Shmuel Maznuth, who writes the following: that there's a pasuk in Hosea in Perek Hey pasuk Tezvav that says that Hashem says, "Eleich ashuva el makaymi." I'm going to go return to my place. Rashi says over there, "Estalek mehem." I'm going to leave Klal Yisrael. Ashuva el hashamayim. I'll go back to the heavens. So he says that after the Chet HaEgel, God was no longer like Hashamayim and like Haaretz, and that's why David Amel, and that's why Daniel refers to God as like Hashamayim. So I think I would have said that Hashem resided in the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash, and He was continued to be like Hashamayim and like Haaretz until the Churban. But anyway, that's how he explains it. But I think you see a very interesting thing that Daniel refers to God as Elokei HaShamayim, right? Elokei D'Shmaya. Okay, so where are we up to now? Your test?
Kaf Aleph.
Kaf Aleph. So Daniel is still praising Hashem, and he says like this: V'hu mahashne idanaya v'zimnaya. God who changes times and seasons, right? Every day that goes by, Hashem is changing the days. Hashem is changing the seasons. Mehadei malchin. He uproots kings. In other words, Daniel is making reference to the fact that Nebuchadnezzar's dream was ominous that eventually Nebuchadnezzar will no longer be king. Umahake malchin, and he sets up new kings. Yahev chachmesa lechakimin. God gives wisdom to the wise. Ugvorsa dilehi.
What the wise men need wisdom? They have it already.
A good kasha, right?
They don't get it.
God should give wisdom to the stupid, not to the wise.
No, but that's the way they became wise, because the Kodesh Baruch gave them the wisdom.
But it says God gives wisdom to the wise.
That's right. That's how they become wise.
Yeah. No, but that means were they wise before God gave them wisdom? It's very interesting. Right? The Medrash asks, what does God have to give wisdom to the wise for? He should give it to the people who are not wise. Okay, so the Malbim says...
wise people. If everybody got wisdom, then you wouldn't have any... You have to have gradation amongst the people. They're not all the same. Why?
Right, so
if you gave wisdom to everybody, then you wouldn't have wise. Wise wouldn't mean anything.
No, but 1 second. No, we have to ask a number of questions here. If God only gives wisdom to the wise, how do you become wise in the first place? Where do you get the first piece of wisdom from? Yeah? So there are different ways of understanding it. Some say Reishis Chachma, Yiras Hashem. You know what it means? God gives wisdom to the wise. Wise means those who have Yiras Shamayim. Those who have fear of God. Fear of God is that first piece of wisdom, right? Because fear of God is called Chachma. Reishis Chachma, the beginning of Chachma. Beginning of Chachma means the first wisdom with which God says, oh, you have it? I'll give you more. That's Yiras Shamayim. But the Malbim learns, what does it mean? Yahav Chachmas al Chakimin. A Chacham is not someone who has wisdom. A Chacham is someone who wants wisdom, who seeks wisdom. That's the definition of Chachma. The Malbim says...
They use the Chachma. They just know it. And we talked about it Tzaddik.
In other words, someone...
Chachma, but applies what he learns.
No, Chachma means someone who desires wisdom. The Malbim says someone who's meichin himself. He prepares himself for wisdom. Hashem doesn't give wisdom just to anybody. Hashem only gives wisdom to those who prepare themselves and are meichin themselves for wisdom. Umanda, God gives understanding, liyadei vina, to those who know understanding. In other words, for those who prepare for it. Take a look. Okay? So that's what Daniel is saying. Yahev chachmasa lechakimin. Look in Chav Beis. Hu galei amikasa.
So can I say this? Do we interpret from this that he was going to tell Nebuchadnezzar that he was king only because Hashem put him there?
Oh, he was going to tell Nebuchadnezzar that Nebuchadnezzar...
Forget about what's going to happen, you're going to be ice king. But that you're a king only because the Kodesh Baruch Hu wanted you to be king. He's not going to be happy with that.
Let's see what we'll have to see. Stay tuned. Look in Chafez. Hu Gale Amikasa. God reveals the deep. Umisatrasa. And the hidden. Right? Rashi says, Gala Mikasa, Goila Amukas. He reveals that which is deep. Umistatra. And the depths. The Mefarshim say, Amikasa refers to the Maisa Merkava. Misatrasa refers to Maisa Bereshis. Yada ma b'chasheicha. God knows what is in darkness. What does that mean, God knows what is in darkness? The Rambam explains that human beings have knowledge, but their knowledge is based on external stimuli, right? Why do we know something? Because we see it. It comes through our senses. Through the sense of sight, we see what's happening, and that takes into our minds what happened. In other words, our knowledge is external to ourselves. God doesn't know something because of an external ability. God's knowledge is inherent. He knows because He's the definition of knowledge. So God knows what is in darkness because He doesn't need external stimuli to take it in. Unahira ime sharei, and light resides with Him. Then Daniel says, Lach elaka avasi. To you, the God of my forefathers, Mahaide, I thank Meshabachana, and I praise. Di chachmaso gvurosa yehaftli, that wisdom and strength you gave me. So the question is, what does it mean He gave Daniel strength? Well, what does Daniel have to be strong for? Why does Daniel keep on talking about gvura?
He needed strength to his diet.
What?
For his diet.
Why? Because to be a Navi, you need to be a Giva?
For his diet.
But Daniel wasn't a Navi.
No, for his diet. He needed strength because he wasn't eating the food that the king gave, this nutritious food. He ate beans.
Oh.
So he needed the strength. Hashem should give him. The pasuk says that they showed beauty in the eyes of the king. Mm-hmm. That he showed himself strong.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe. So she says, well, maybe because you need a Navi has to have three things. You need chach.
But he wasn't a Navi.
Well, it depends, different.
According to the one that he wasn't a Navi.
Well, maybe according to the one that he wasn't. But why not Ashiros? Why doesn't he talk about that? Okay. That he was already. Okay. Ucha'an hoidatani, and now you are teaching me. You're telling me diva eino minach, that which I asked of you. Di milas malka hoidatena, that the word of the king. What does hoidatena mean?
Let me know.
You let me know. You let me know. So kol kavel dana, because of this, Daniel al Aryech. Daniel went to Aryech. Dimane malka, who was appointed by the king, lahaivada l'chakimei Bavel, to destroy the wise men of Bavel. Azal, he then went. Aryech went. V'chein amar lei, Azal, who went? Daniel went to him. V'chein amar lei, he then said to him.
Al or Aryech already said that he went to Aryech.
So Rashi says Al means he entered, and Azal he went.
Al, so name of the Israeli Al.
V'chein amar lei, he said to him, L'chakimi Bavel al, don't destroy the wise men of Bavel. Ha'aleini kadamaka, bring me before the king. Ufishra lamalka achave, and I will tell the king the interpretation. Rabbi say, have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.